date is December 17th, 2017. This is an update called Disclosure, Delonge, and the Beginning of the End. Some are calling today the Day of Disclosure. 2016 has been a big year for the Delonge story. However, there was actually only one big day, that was October the 11th, when Tom Delonge held a news conference in which a number of government people stood with him and presented a program that they said they were going to pull off. Today, it appears they may have delivered. The Delonge is only one of a number of different disclosure efforts that's going on. I've heard that there may be as many as 6. Delonge is one. There's a documentary that I'm aware of that'll be coming out of Los Angeles. And there's some leaking being done on a project called the Condign Report, a very important report out of the United Kingdom. The story that broke today actually started November 27th. Tom Delonge put out a message that said that there would be declassified video that would be backed by the government and that this video would be appearing. What happened then was a series of delays, and that's what happened in 2016. The original story was supposed to have broken in the December of 2016, and really nothing happened until October the 11th when Tom had his news conference. So on November 27th, after the news conference, he mentioned the fact that this video would be coming out. And then the delays, almost like 2016, started again. And they actually had the thing all written up. They released what they were going to release, this video from the Nimitz 2004 incident, but nothing happened. We already knew the Nimitz video existed. This is a video I showed shortly after Tom Delonge's news conference. This had been on the internet, had been pulled, but someone showed me where to find it. So this was part of the video, a different part that they showed today. But the one they showed today was a different one with the voice of the jet fighters. Shows this object moving into, I believe it was 120 knot headwind, tumbling, and comments by these pilots as to what they were looking at. So this video was released today, but there was a number of delays. It was supposed to have been released long before today, and Tom was actually taking a lot of flack for this. What's important about the release today, the fact that it's backed by the government, that the government is confirming that this is legitimate, formally classified film, is this Canadian government document from November of 1950, where the Canadian government is told by Americans through classified channels that the subject of flying saucers is the most highly classified subject in the United States. That means that these leaks, if this video, and this video probably is legit and backed by the US government, this means that there is authorization to have this material leaked, that this is a planned program. This is not a whistleblower. This is actually the government making a disclosure. This is what Tom wrote on December the 2nd, after about a week making this announcement. He said, "Calm, the countdown has begun." But he took a lot of flack. Here's one of the people on his site saying, "This is the countdown to announce another countdown of a coming countdown for another countdown. We're really waiting for, but that countdown hasn't started until this countdown finishes before the other one." So he took this flack, and here's another one where someone put, peanut butter and crack sandwich, that he was taking an awful lot of flack, that again, he wasn't producing, he was dragging people along, just trying to raise money, and that there really was nothing that was going to happen. So then George Knapp came to his defense on December the 10th, and George wrote, "Remember the October announcement made by rocker Tom DeLonge and his team of former government insiders? Stay tuned." And then Tom retweets it and he says, "Stay very tuned." So again, they're confirming that this is coming, but they're still taking a lot of flack in terms of the fact that it's not coming. And even Gary Beckham, who's a very respected researcher who's been on the inside of these kind of stories, actually said he had heard the same thing from George Knapp, but he wasn't holding his breath. Even he was skeptical that this film would actually get released and be confirmed by the U.S. government as being a legitimate film. Here's some more criticism. You keep saying that and nothing ever happens. I was just going to ask if it's been 3 weeks yet, because this is the original. First it was 2 weeks, and then it was 3 weeks, and these delays started to go. I've been staying tuned since 2015, and because Tom was taking so much a hit, here's another one. Something's coming, and every day they tell me one more day. This is Tom, and so what you can see, and this is actually only a couple of days ago, Tom says something's coming, and every day they tell me one more day. Ugh. But I will look back at it as one of my life's greatest accomplishments. So this is an important thing, is the fact that Tom DeLonge actually was having his doubts that this would get released as well. And that's the most important part about today's story of the release of this film and the acknowledgement that the U.S. government has spent $22 million investigating UFOs, is the fact that this is not a Tom DeLonge story. All through 2016, I heard, and it was confirmed today, that government people would identify themselves and that the government people would make the disclosure. That's exactly what's happened. You can see Tom DeLonge even had his doubts it was going to happen. So this story today had nothing to do with Tom DeLonge. This was government people who happened to be in working with Tom DeLonge, but it was the government people today who made the disclosure. The story today had nothing to do with Tom DeLonge. And so Tom DeLonge, here's his comment for all this criticism to all these people. He said, "You all are so funny. The enormity of what I've pulled off has taken years and a major sacrifice. Every time I see a doubter and impatience, I laugh at the ignorance, insignificance of their views. The biggest secret in the world doesn't break open easily. There's a war inside DC." I actually asked people in around the camp of Dr. Ron Pandolfi, who I believe may be the guy who actually briefs the president, and they denied this, that there was a war inside Washington. But I've gotten a confirmation today from somebody that I respect inside this story that yes, there are people who are not happy with this story and how it's coming out. And I'll make a comment at the very end of one of the insiders actually said. So these are the two stories that broke today. One was in Politico, one was in the New York Times, and actually both stories appeared in the New York Times. But what you have is an event where a number of major newspapers all at the same time released a story. So this was planned behind the scenes. And I've always been told that it was Jim Semivan. Jim Semivan is running this operation, former briefer for the President of the United States. And Jim Semivan is a guy who can make things happen. Today's indication that you have a number of coordinated releases by major newspapers, major media in the United States, proves that they actually did have this pretty well coordinated. Here's the other story. Here's the story that appeared in the New York Times today. And this is a story that we had heard a number of weeks ago, that this story was going to break in the New York Times. At least 2 weeks ago we heard this. And it was actually posted on Open Minds Forum by a guy by the name of Isaac Coy. So I asked Dan Smith about this thing. Dan Smith is very close to Ron Pandolfi. A lot of these postings happen at Open Minds Forum. And this goes to Ron Pandolfi, who is the major guy who seems to be the guy who may run the weird desk or the UFO desk at the CIA. And so this afternoon, Dan Smith posts this. Ron called to say that the allegations of a Nimitz encounter are a scam engineered by Hal would be held put off, in cahoots with his old friend Leslie, who would be Leslie Kane. The two articles would never have made it past the editors in the old days, but now the New York Times is desperate for readership, along with all the other outlets. So Ron is basically he's sort of poo-pooing the Nimitz story, but the rest of the story, in terms of the fact that the U.S. government spent $22 million investigating UFOs, he does not deny that part of the story. So even Dan Smith has his doubts. He said, do I believe the scam story? I'm just saying, in part, he might be covering his own tracks, vicarious deniability. And this is one of the possibilities, is that Ron Pandolfi is actually running this operation. And because it's sources and methods, you cannot say who's actually running the operation and who's involved in the operation. And he may be actually just denying his own story of people that are actually working for him. Because one of the stories I heard was that Jim Semivan, who's an experiencer, was read into the program when he retired from the CIA in 2008. And I was told that the briefing was done by Dr. Ronald Pandolfi. So this is a possibility that this whole operation is run by Dr. Pandolfi, and that this is plausible deniability by putting down the story. Jim Semivan, as I said, is the guy who's running the program. I've known about him long before he joined the Tom DeLonge operation in April of 2016. And as I said, he was briefed. The story today breaks, and it basically talks about Harry Reid, who is the minority whip and also the majority whip for the Democrats in the Senate. And this is one of the headlines for today from one of the newspapers, I believe it was Politico: ex-Senator Harry Reid driving force behind the UFO program. And the program starts in 2007, I would assume, when as Barack Obama is coming in 2008, and it runs till 2012. But the New York Times story states that they have got confirmation that even when this program ended, it actually continued. So here's a story from USA Today talking about former Senator Harry Reid. And this is another important part of this story, is that the people who are running these operations are people who are retired. So Senator Reid basically releases the story after he has retired, the same as Jim Semivan is retired, the same as Lou Elizondo is retired, same as Steve Justice is retired. And basically you have Jim Semivan, all these people who are retired, and then they are sort of open to saying what they want, as opposed to having a government official on the record. So here's the story. The program cost the federal taxpayers $22 million from late 2008 through 2011. And the contracts, according to all the articles today, stated were actually run by billionaire Robert Bigelow. And in the UFO community, he's been known for quite a while. He actually went on 60 Minutes earlier this year to say, yes, he believes there are UFOs, and he doesn't really care what anybody thinks. And so Bob Bigelow was running this operation, and Bob Bigelow, for a number of years, people have known that he's been very interested in the UFO phenomena, and he has made contacts with all sorts of insiders on the program. Some people disputed this, saying, well, $22 million is nothing, but you've got to keep in mind that $22 billion is $22 billion more than the government said they were spending. They said they were spending nothing. And then later on today, Harry Reid actually made a comment based upon the articles. He made a tweet, and this is what he said in the tweet in response to the articles that had been made public today. He said, if anyone thinks they have the answers, they're fooling themselves. We don't know the answers, but we have plenty of evidence to support asking the questions. This is about science and national security. If America doesn't take the lead in answering these questions, others will. this again, this is $22 million. People say was just $22 million. This is an event I was involved with. Steve Bassett started in 2012, just after they supposedly shut this program down. Steve Bassett files a petition with the Obama White House on their petition site. They're required to have 5,000 signatures. As soon as he gets his UFO petition for 5,000, then they changed the rules to 25,000. Steve gets it, and the Obama White House is forced to answer the petition. And this is what Phil Larson at the Office of Science and Technology Policy says: the U.S. government has no evidence that any life exists outside our planet, or that an extraterrestrial presence has contacted or engaged any member of the human race. In addition, there is no credible information to suggest that any evidence is being hidden from the public's eye. That has been absolutely proved to be a lie today. The government has now confirmed they spent $22 million on the UFO subject. This story has gone viral. Almost every major news outlet in the country has picked up this story. We'll see if it keeps going. I even got an email today from Sweden, and this guy said he's been trying to get Swedish media to deal with the UFO subject, and they haven't until today. They reprinted the New York Times article. That's significant because this is where the big UFO museum is. They have a massive collection of people's files, of books, and Jim Semivan, you'll see here, actually visited this museum. There was a guy from America who gave a bunch of money to support this. Jim Semivan is very pro trying to get the academics to look at the UFO subject, and when this money was donated, he went to Sweden to visit this this big, huge place where they have all the books and the files and stuff. And Jim Semivan is the guy who's running the Tom DeLonge operation. And most importantly about Jim Semivan, I always want to remind people, Jim Semivan is an experiencer. He had 3 beings in his room in the 1990s. So he's not coming from evil government guy. He's coming from a guy who wants to try to figure out what happened to him as well. Leslie Kean appeared tonight on MSNBC, talked about the whole thing. So they picked up the story. They did a straight up piece. And that's what a number of people have realized, is that in the media today, almost no articles have any little green aliens, laugh, laugh, laugh anymore. It's all pretty straight up pieces, and MSNBC did. And Leslie Kean is sort of like the journalist who is doing a lot of the Tom DeLonge material and interviewing his people and helping get these stories out. Fade to Black did a major show on it tonight, went on for hours, and I actually made my comments on there today. And I'm going to leave you with, now we're going to get into the controversial parts here. This is from one of the insiders I received tonight, and I can't confirm this, but this is what I was told. There's a shitstorm going on in certain quarters of the government, wondering how it got released. That happened. That comment apparently was made today. And the final one is the most dramatic one. This is what I received just a couple hours ago, to say we should thank Donald Trump. And I don't know whether to confirm that. We're going to try to get that confirmed. I think I know where it's coming from, but the story was that Donald Trump had something to do with what happened today. So, and so that's the Tom DeLonge story. I just want to update you on another story that is breaking as well. Last month I had a meeting with Melinda Leslie, and that's Lori and Fenton in this video, in this thing here. We are going to do a presentation in March in San Jose, and I came to realize that Melinda Leslie, who's the foremost expert on MILABs in the world, very good researcher, has been working on the same story I have on this gradual government disclosure thing for 20, I think she said 28 or 29 years. I did not realize that. And when I was there, this is where we're going to do the presentation at the UFO Con 2018. We are going to go through, she's going to give her material, I'm going to give my material, and I will tell you right up front, it all links, and a number of people are going to be mentioned as to people who worked inside the government and how this thing all unfolded. And she agrees with me that this gradual disclosure has been going on for a number of years, and she has actually dealt with a number of the players that I've talked about the various times I've written about the subject. She's actually talked to the players. Here's at the conference, you'll see the little envelope there. She provided me 80 pages of material based upon the research that she had done over the years. So that's going to be coming. And we did a couple of days ago, we did an actual interview on California MUFON Radio, where the last hour of the show, Melinda and I basically talked about what we are going to release. So you can go to that, and it'll be on my White House UFO YouTube channel. We're going to post that 1 hour, 45 minutes where Melinda and I are talking. But that's it for today. Enjoy the day, because we've actually got confirmation now. This is coming from the U.S. government. This is not coming from Tom DeLonge or me or anyone else. It is now official. The U.S. government spent $22 million on UFOs. And the other message I guess I'll leave you with, I've got a number of people who've been feeding me material, and one of them said today, get ready, it's just beginning.